Hello again, everybody. Here's an interesting little game that was played approximately in 1845 between Shumoff with the white pieces and Janisch with the black, and it's a Scotch Gambit. And it starts out e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, d4, and now black takes off the d-pawn. But instead of recapturing with the knight, white brings out his bishop to c4, which enables black to bring out his bishop to c5, defending the pawn. White now plays his knight out to g5, hitting at the f7 pawn along with his bishop, and black defends with knight to h6. But it's not really much of a defense, because white goes ahead and plays knight takes f7. And after black recaptures with the knight, white plays bishop takes f7 check. And after black recaptures with the king, white brings out the queen to h5 with check. And after black blocks the check with g6, white simply swings the queen over to c5 and takes the undefended bishop. So believe it or not, after all of that, material is even, although black, of course, does have a doubled pawn on the d-file, and of course his king is completely exposed. Black now plays his pawn to d6, hitting at the queen and releasing his own queen bishop. White moves his queen over to b5. Now black swings his rook over to e8, threatening to take the pawn on e4 with check, but instead of defending the pawn, white just goes ahead and castles. And sure enough, black swoops down and takes the pawn. Now white brings the queen back over to d5 with check and of course a double attack on the rook. And of course the only way to save the rook and to block the check is to play the rook back to e6. White now brings out his bishop to g5, hitting at the black queen, and black just moves the queen over to e8. White now plays the pawn up to f4, hoping to open the f file for his rook, especially since black's king is on that file, so black moves the king over to g7. White goes ahead and advances the pawn up to f5, hitting at the rook, and black decides to counterattack by playing the rook to e5, hitting at white's queen. White decides to just keep the pawn moving and plays f6, check, and after black moves his king back into the corner, white marches the pawn on to f7, hitting at black's queen. Now black has several alternatives here. Unfortunately, they're all bad. For instance, if he decides to go ahead and just take white's queen at d5, white quickly ends the game with bishop to f6, checkmate. Or if black decides to blockade the pawn at f7 by playing queen to f8, white quickly ends the game with bishop to f6 check. And after black is forced to block with the queen, white simply takes the queen with check, and after black recaptures, white just simply promotes the pawn to a queen at f8, checkmate. So black simply chooses, I guess, the lesser of the three evils. He decides to play the king to g7. But of course, it's already too late. And now it's time for the challenge to the viewer. If you'd like to pause the video now and see if you can find white's winning combination, I'll wait for you. Well, not surprisingly, white's winning combination begins by taking the queen at e8, but he underpromotes to a knight with check. And black only really has two choices. He can move the king to its only legal square, which is of course h8, and then white can simply end the game with rook to f8, checkmate. Or he can do what he actually did in the game. He went ahead and captured the knight at e8 with the rook. But white quickly ends the game by playing the queen to f7 check. And after black moves to his only available square in the corner, white finishes the game with bishop to f6. Checkmate. A very interesting little game, and I hope you enjoyed it. And I'll see you next time.